July 21st, 2026. Well, a lot's been discussed in the news recently, and Fox seems to be obsessed with it. This group called the Democrat Socialists of America, which is becoming a bit of a plague for the Democrat Party, I think. Even some prominent, uh, not moderate people are saying this is going to be a real problem for us in the election, and I hope it is a problem for them, I guess. But I think they're styling themselves as somehow socialists. But when you really think about it, what they're saying directly is really more like anarchists. I mean, any socialist or communist country has to have a police force and has to have prisons. I mean, didn't the Soviet Union have prisons and a police force, if you will? Even things like the KGB and its predecessors, even the gulags and all that stuff. I mean, how do you enforce the policies that they're talking about without having a police force? I mean, for instance, they're advocating abolishing prisons and the police, and so if they actually did that, obviously, why would anybody have to obey them? I mean, if they don't have any police to arrest you, no prison to put you in. Um, I mean, when they try to put out their laws and dictates, can't most people just ignore them and actually form our own militias to deal with situations as we see fit? And unlike the situation when there is a police force, where there are prisons in the law, obviously you would go to prison yourself for doing that. But if they don't have prisons, then they can't really control anything, right? So obviously they're lying to us. Another thing is they want open borders. Well, a socialist country with all sorts of benefits, right? Uh, Free health care and housing support and all this stuff. If the entire world population sees this and all starts coming in here with no border enforcement and no deportation possibilities, the whole system would simply economically collapse on itself. I mean, it would be a complete meltdown. I mean, they wouldn't have anything made to rule over, if they really did that, which again indicates they're probably lying. They're really not going to do that because they sound like they're a bunch of anarchists when it really comes down to it, right? And we all know that is not a viable system, anarchy, that is. So I think. But it's interesting that they're probably playing to a bunch of complete fools, obviously, to vote for them. And of course, most of the districts are either, we've said previously, are mostly minority and poor districts, or areas that are ultra liberal, like, well, I don't know, let's say Vermont and maybe at least one of the congressional districts in Maine. Although the whole state isn't quite as bad as Vermont, I don't think. I don't know what's wrong with the people up in Vermont. I really don't know. You ought to get rid of that Bernie Sanders. I mean, he's really a loser, But it looks like some kind of mad professor or something. But anyhow, that's kind of my thought on the subject of them. We'll see. They've won a few House nominations, and we'll see what happens as the rest of the primaries transpire in the next, what are we in here? We got about 6 weeks left or less than that before they're all over with, and we'll see what the results are. We'll see what Maine comes up to replace Plattner. But I think that's kind of my thought. That these people should be considered to be anarchists as such, or simply liars. If you like these videos, please give me a like, subscribe, click the bell for notifications, or you can also follow me on Rumble. Yeah, so that's kind of my thought on that in general. I think that, of course, one of the prime examples of this, of course, is this Mayor Mondami of New York, who's really a true buffoon, but it seems like he's, proceeding. Now, his latest stupid idea is that when Benjamin Netanyahu, Prime Minister of Israel, would come to New York to speak at the UN, he's planning on arresting him because of this so-called International Court of Criminal Justice in Rome, I think it is, or is it The Hague? I don't know, one of the two, but anyway, there's a Treaty of Rome behind it. And it's like a group of people in Europe that basically look down on all the people in the rest of the world and try to charge them with war crimes and stuff. And then, of course, they also decided to indict also Vladimir Putin. And his crime is basically rescuing children from war zones that have been abandoned either because their parents have fled or just because they're dead because of the war. And took them into Russia for care and probably keeping them away from Zelensky's poisonous ideology, you know. But anyhow, so I guess Netanyahu has some company with him, plus some dictators in Africa or whatever. But I think the whole thing is kind of a bad joke, really. That group, and it's anyhow. But here's the problem. I mean, first of all, I mean, he wants to get, I guess, his police force to arrest the guy, but that would be on what, since the United States is not ratified and not a member of this treaty that established that court, and for good reasons. We don't want our own president put on trial, right? And by the way, that could just as well be Obama or Biden or Trump. You know, it doesn't have to be just Trump. Sometimes the Democrats, you know, think about Trump and they go, well, let's do this against Trump, not realizing if they were to win an election, the same thing would apply to their guy, right? I don't know. They're kind of crazy. But anyhow, so, and the other thing is, even if we were subscribed to this treaty, the fact of the matter is, that this is a federal issue, not a city issue, right? And since what could they do? What could they really do with them if they, quote, arrest them? I mean, obviously the federal government would have to take control of it. They can't legitimately send them out of the country. Remember that we've had a lot of issues about states trying to take over border security, right? And the other thing is, I believe an aspect of the treaty that set that up is that heads of state that are going to diplomatic meetings, like the UN, I think, are exempted from this. I believe, if I remember correctly. This came up a little bit about the idea of, you know, where could Putin go to meet Zelensky to negotiate an end to the war there, and there was kind of a discussion that there is a clause where they could do that. I mean, the general thought would be, I guess, that if for whatever reason Netanyahu should land in some country that subscribes to this treaty that's established this court, and because of a plane failure or something, you know, and that I guess maybe they could try to do that, and and that could get into some really nasty business there too. So we'll have to see what happens. That just shows how cuckoo Mondami is, and that's another example of these crazy Democrat Socialists who really ultimately are anarchists. They're trying to tear down the Constitution and just generally do mayhem, I think. Anyhow, meanwhile, we'll see how things continue in the conflict in Iran. But I'll be wrapping this one up for now. It's going to be a shorter one than the last one. It was a little bit of blessing to people, anybody that got through all of the last one. And I'll be posting this on YouTube and Rumble, and the addresses of my social media accounts are in the description below. So all for this time.